Wow. And this is live. Sweet. I have no words for what I'm looking at.
I'm waiting for the intro. Come on.
All right,
I can't wait like that forever.
Yes, I actually want to see if you can.
No.
Either way. Well, let's get things going because we are absolutely live. Welcome, everybody, to Rated M for Mature's first ever live podcast, which will kind of a redundant thing to say because we're always going to be live with this until we decide otherwise. So you're all in for a treat to that. We're just going to be in your face. I am here with my cohorts, Andy Man. How are you? My good old homeboy, Phil Stop.
Hello, ladies.
Hi. Okay, I'm not a lady. And I am Matt Ram.
To you.
I don't know that.
Yes, you do. Come on.
I don't know
that. You're married.
Anyway. So, welcome to our first ever live podcast. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about games and their iterations and everything that revolves around that specific topic in general, because there's so many games that are coming out or have already come out that are, to me, could have been pretty much a patch update, in my opinion. That's just me. We're going to be listening to also opinions from Phil Stop and Andy Man, and then we're just going to go ahead and go from there. So, like I said, there's plenty of games that have been released lately, and most of them really didn't give much dynamic to gameplay value, at least that warranted having to rebuy a new setup. We're looking at stuff like from World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Star Wars, my most hated, setup of EA Sports. Even in my realm of fighting games, from Tekken, Street Fighter, that whole bit there, certain things didn't really need to have a new $60, purchase price. That's just my own opinion here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to start first and foremost with some of the more popular things of the MMO world. And we'll start off with, the topics of World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Star Wars. Now, Phil, stop. This is mainly your expertise area. I know all of us have dabbled in World of Warcraft, but I know this is one of your Jimmy Jams.
Yes, indeed. I am the resident MMO player, and WoW has put out a expansion every year since, I want to say it's been annual since about Burning Crusade.
2011, I think. Well, it wasn't annual because Lich King was a couple years after, which was the first expansion after DC. And I believe since then they tried to go every 12 to 18 months they would try to bring out new content.
In WoW?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I mean, when it comes to WoW, I mean, the latest expansion, Legions, I think that probably is the only thing that I can know of that would probably warrant another repurchasing of the game itself, just because of the graphical overhaul that it did, along with adding more to the world itself, more places to venture, more quests, more raids, more gear, more hidden, stuff. I mean, you all seen? I passed that around a while back when this group of raiders accidentally released a boss out of nowhere when they were trying to do some what was it, a mount quest to get a new mount, when they wind up
they were doing a quest to get an epic mount.
Yeah, and they wind up unleashing I guess it was labeled as a god of destruction of some sort, basically the big bad boss. And it's one of those things that they didn't know was going to happen, but it happened. So this is the type of stuff I'm talking about that warrants that type of stuff. But when you look at like other patches that are out there, other things that that are trying to play off as like a full game when really it's just literally could have just been a DLC update, a patch update. We're more or less talking about games in that like FPS and sports. Those two are, in my opinion, at least that's probably my own bias because I dislike the genres in the sense that I'm terrible at them.
Yeah,
this would be your realm, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, FPS is primarily something that I specialize in, but when it comes down to it, specifically with World of Warcraft, is when it comes to MMOs and MOBAs, that's the one game that I really spend a significant amount of time playing. And I think that specifically with World of Warcraft, I think it's every other release. Honestly, could have been handled by like a $15 add-on purchase, because basically what they're doing is they're releasing new content and they're adding in a new character class, which honestly, like, they're not really doing major overhauls. So when they released, what was it? I think it was what was it? Cataclysm. They did a major graphics overhaul in part because there was so much of the map that wound up getting redone. So they wound up going through and they just redid everything, just touched everything up because Cataclysm, was cataclysmic. Like, everything was impacted. So they went and they basically did an overhaul because everything had changed. But aside from that, other than that, there hasn't been a graphical overhaul since the original release prior to this year. But aside from that, I mean, like you said, there really is no major benefit to dropping $50-$60 on the update, when really it's just stuff that could be handled with like an annual $20 purchase. You spend the $20, you get the add-on, and it's just a digital download. You get all of the new quests and all of the new battlegrounds and dungeons and all that shit for rated, and you unlock the new character class. Like, simple in-game $20 add-on, no different than paying for like a realm transfer or a name change or something like that in-game. It's same thing that can be handled with that. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Phil? I mean, you're in this much more than I am, so.
Yeah, I figured, Phil, you would know this one here, especially with Star Wars, because I feel that's what they are doing in the right when it comes to their patches.
Yeah.
Yeah, their patches, this is what I was going to add on to what Andy was saying, is their patches are free for subscribers. And if you're a subscriber to WoW, you should get the next expansion for free, just like you do in Star Wars. There's a lot of extra stuff that comes with the collector's edition, but if you're just getting the standard edition, then it should be just straight up free with your subscription. And if you're free to play, since Star Wars adopts a purely free-to-play payment model, then you do have to pay the $20 for the extra content. But if you sub for like 2 months, you get the content as well for free.
Yeah.
And then you could drop your subscription and then continue playing.
Well, with World of Warcraft, you pay the $15 a month for the monthly sub, and if you do, every other year, you do basically a $20 content upgrade. I mean, each person then would be investing roughly $200 a year minimum, and that would give you current, up-to-date content, which honestly, I'm okay with that. But having to drop $180 a year on the sub, because it's $15 a month by 12 months, obviously, and then another $40 to $60 on top of that for the game, that's just more than I really think is really beneficial. And I think that's why their total subs has decreased by like 40% or something like that in the last couple of years.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. Like, there's certain things, like, to me, don't warrant that having to drop that amount on there. I think now with the technology happening here, mainly just because I speak on the console realm, because that's my computer setup is not up to par with you two. So console's where it's at. And so, but I don't. They have the same capabilities PC wise when it comes to distributing their updates, their patches, their DLC content, and I think that like games should now start adopting that. But like you were saying there, you need a subscription for, and having to constantly pay that, it kind of does take it away from people. Take away from that joy of playing the game. When you have to shell out such amount, and if every game did that, then it would kind of that would really break up in your wallet. But there are certain things when they do like just minor stuff. I'm talking about like just the minor tweaks, things that like shouldn't be considered like new game worthy.
Similar to what EA does specifically with Madden, with NHL, all of that. It's minor little tweaks. It's pretty much every other release or every third release is when they do major overhauls, because it just takes time for major changes to be made. Like you can't get stuff hammered out that quickly. So honestly, like for Madden and for NHL with EA, I don't know why they don't just release like a $20 update with the next year. Like, give me a $20 roster update. I'll pay the $20 for the roster update. Sure, you're not going to make major changes
in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And then to me, that would actually produce more sale outside of having to buy another $60 game, which really is no different from what you currently have, just that the stats are updated. That goes along with what's it, the UFC? That stuff is no different. Really could just do roster updates and maybe some tweaks here in like the look of the player, the look of the fighters themselves, because sometimes over the year they'll grow a beard, or they'll shave their head, or they'll have a specific look that they want to daunt out. I think was it the latest one coming out, one with Ronda Rousey on the cover, and
UFC.
Yeah. That right there, no different from last year's thing. I had to let me put this perspective here that game is absolutely trash to begin with the amount of glitches and the online lag. That's just my own personal opinion. But the updates that they put on there don't warrant the full $60, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, Final Fantasy is another one where it's not necessarily every year, but it's something where you have, every year or two, you're going to see something coming out from them. Now, I myself have not spent hardly any time in Final Fantasy. But I know, Phil, you spend quite a bit of time in there. I mean, do you see that happening with Final Fantasy as well, where they're releasing games that don't necessarily need to be released and could be resolved with maybe a $20 patch?
The way Final Fantasy does its updates is they're on a 2-month cycle. Okay. So once a new content comes out, like Heavenly Sword, that was the latest one that came out. They had everything came out with standard difficulty. Then 2 months later, they kick it up to a harder difficulty with new sets of gear. So they do that every 2 months, and every 2 months you're not paying for it. It's completely free. The only thing you had to pay for was the update itself, because it did add in extra stuff. They added a bunch of different job classes and extra tiers of classes, so it did warrant an update, but their development cycle is totally different than World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, their development cycle is they just leave it as it is until the next patch or the next update comes out. Like if you look at what was the previous one? Mists of Pandaria, I believe. It was before Legion. They didn't change anything aside from the minor graphics changes that came out in patches. But the new class came out, Demon Hunter in Legion, and Monk came out with Mists of Pandaria. So the development cycle is a little bit different, but I think it's just company-based that they decided to go with the longer development cycle and let the players sort through the different kinks in the game until the next update comes out.
Yeah. Well, I figured when it came to Final Fantasy, because I played that one on 11 and then went back to on 14 when I had it on PS4. The game that you purchase are usually meant for like that newcomer, so they're up to date and they don't have to worry about downloading an older version and having to update and wait for all that. I think even World of Warcraft has been doing the same thing, mainly designed for those who don't have the game. It's like it just to get up and running type of scenario. But you don't get that in other games. You don't get that in like first-person shooters. Andy, in MOBAs wise, I think that their stuff is like constantly updating.
Yeah, so the primary MOBAs are League of Legends, and there's a couple that have come out since. But with League of Legends, it's all available for free. Everything is pushed for free now. If you want to go and get upgraded stuff, you can pay to get higher perks and XP bonus and all of this other stuff. But pretty much with League, everything is released for free. You don't have to necessarily pay for anything. So it's all distributed for free. So I'm not really sure how the hell they're still in business, given the free business model. That doesn't really make much sense. But yeah, with those, it's all released free.
Yeah, well, I think most of their income usually comes from the people who actually do pay to get the characters that they want. Yeah, because the free cycle, once that week or 2 weeks is up, then it moves on to someone else, and if they really like that character, they either have to buy it or like constantly grind until they get it. And most people don't have that type of time to do that unless they're like the MLG style and they actually make a living off that type of stuff. Same thing goes into like the first person shooter wise too. I mean, like, depending on which game it is, I mean, most of those really don't really warrant a full-blown $60. I 30 probably, because it depends on the game, because sometimes they'll have, like, for example, like Call of Duty, they had like the Modern Warfare, then they jumped to a different style of first-person shooter with their Black Ops, and then now even more so with the Black Ops 3, where it's like the super futuristic type of thing. Those are, there are a lot of them that literally, in my opinion, are the same with some minor differences to them. I don't know. I've avoided Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 3.
Well, so with Call of Duty, the thing about that game is they originally were on a alternating cycle with development studios. So you would have one studio do it 1 year, then you would have another studio make the game for the following year. So basically one studio was doing a game every other year, which is why you have Ghosts and Modern Warfare and all of this other stuff. So there's different versions. So each studio has its own unique version. So now, I think it was about 2 years ago, 2013, 2014, they added a third studio. So now it's every 3 years that you're getting one studio is doing a release. So with Call of Duty, there aren't major changes that are made, which in part is due to the fact that they don't want to deviate from what they already have in the marketplace, but they still want to do something a little bit different. And because it's not the same studio that's doing it year to year, it makes it tricky to keep things that are the same and yet different at the same time. So Call of Duty, I mean, it's an immensely popular game, obviously, but I think they're kind of a victim of their own success because it takes so much to develop a game that it's not realistic to release a game every year. But they're trying to keep themselves relevant in the marketplace by releasing one every year because people are looking for new content. Honestly, I don't know why they don't go the direction of Destiny, where they will have a base game and then they'll release basically an expansion of it, similar to what World of Warcraft does. But you have your initial release, and then you have additional DLC that can be downloaded that will enhance what's already there. But it's still basically the same game, and then they continue to build. Personally, I think if Call of Duty switched to that type of platform, it would be more successful overall and it would be more enjoyable. And for Division, which I know isn't really part of this because it's just, it's only was released just this past year, but I think if Division follows suit with something like that, I think they have the potential to be very successful. But it just kind of depends.
Division, that was done by Ubisoft, wasn't it?
Right.
Right. Well, you look at their one of their more popular series, the Assassin's Creed series. A lot of their versions. I mainly had to stick with the Assassin's Creed 3 and Brotherhood and so on and so forth, where it stayed on that particular timeline. They did well enough to make them both work. Granted, the Brotherhood was more or less considered an expansion, just basically giving that multiplayer outlet to it. But I mean, they did well enough when it came to how they handle their franchises. I don't see that they're gonna do anything wrong when it comes to Division. Again, I'm only speculating at this point because like
You never bought it.
well, not just that, but I mean like out of the amount of stuff that you brought up for different types of modes and gameplays that's supposed to happen with it that have yet to come for two. I think that's pretty much what's going to wind up happening is they're just going to just throw that stuff out there and say, here you guys go. That'll be, $30, please. Can I have it?
No. No, you cannot.
Oh, Lord. You're playing with the buttons. Barry, you have enough beard. You can't double up on the beard.
Yes, I can.
Oh, for crying out loud. First up. You played Division. You played Call of Duty. I mean, like, what your opinion on this stuff here? I mean, like, are the to me, I think like Call of Duty is pushing out that Street Fighter effect by dropping, iteration after iteration of the same thing. I don't know. What do you think?
The first-person shooter scene, specifically Call of Duty, Battlefield, they've been doing annual versions of themselves for quite a while, and I don't think it warrants a yearly iteration. Not a lot changes. Graphically, they stay the same. It's a lot like Madden, where they don't make really big changes until hardware can catch up. And the way they handle Call of Duty Online, it's very unique. It's a PvP thing, and with PvP, they always want new stuff, like new maps, new arenas.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest problem they have is they don't have a large market for additional content. All they got is just the first-person shooter and the PvP aspect of it.
Gotcha. So, like, okay, well, I say this here, like the Street Fighter effect, for those who don't know. The Street Fighter effect is basically back in the 90s when Street Fighter 2 came out, how it became a huge success to where they literally, I think it was like months later, almost they dropped another version of the same game, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, and then again they dropped a Street Fighter. Was it a Super Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Hyper Edition, Super Street Fighter 2 New Challenger? This, like, they constantly dropped the same thing, and all it literally was just patch updates. Granted, at that time, there was no real way of like distributing that update, because most of them were either arcade based or the consoles at the time were cartridge based, and there's no way you can just update a cartridge without having to literally make a new one to it. But that's the effect that happened, to where they flooded the market with these iterations, to where the fighting game scene was over it. They didn't want to play it no more, and they started moving on to other games that are out there. It wasn't until like I believe it was like the Street Fighter 4 that really brought them back into the scene, because it was completely different. It wasn't the same, and it was released literally like almost like 4 to 5 years after Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So those iterations really didn't need to be like done up the way they did, but at the same time they were arcade releases before they were console. Now, when you look at games such as like Mortal Kombat right now, the MKX XL, those technically shouldn't be, I think, it shouldn't have been a full-fledged game, but at the same time, they didn't charge full price. I believe it was only $40 as opposed to the traditional $60.
Well, even still, XL is like a greatest hits edition, or the Game of the Year edition, where it has all the extra content that came out after the game. So,
right.
Like Game of the Year editions, those shouldn't be $60. They should have followed the model with Mortal Kombat and drop it down to $40, maybe even $30. But it's all rehashed content, and if you're a dude who's been playing those games since beginning and you bought everything, and then they package it for a cheaper bundle than what you purchased it for, then you kind of feel burned, you know?
Right. And I believe Capcom's done that more than once when it came to their iterations of games that they dropped, mainly in the Street Fighter scene, more specifically the Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which is kind of like the black sheep of the Versus series of games, just because of how poorly they did their DLC patches, which technically wasn't DLC because all that content was already on disc, and you're paying like $30 more for
to unlock different characters.
For literally about like 100 kilobytes of data, which is basically a key you purchased, and so people cracked that beforehand and was displaying those before the actual official like update was supposed to drop, and it kind of blew up in their faces. That I don't see that really happening with other games in that field. When we look at stuff like Call of Duty and Battlefield, those are the types that they can fix that in updates, as opposed to having to drop a full-fledged. Hell, even Forza itself, to my end here, it should be the kind that's like an update, because you look at like Forza Horizon 1 and 2. Well, kind of hard to put those two as a comparison, since 1 was on 360 and then 2 technically did both sides, kind of straddled the line, and then 3 went to the bone and every iteration after the fact. But the content that was in them, I don't know if it was really worth paying a full $60 as opposed to paying a $30 drop on it. I don't know, Andy. This would be something you're more inclined with.
Yeah, so I've spent a significant amount of time within Forza. I've played Horizon 3 now for the last couple of weeks since launch, and I've generally enjoyed it. I didn't play Horizon 1 or 2, but I spent a couple hundred hours in Forza Motorsport 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, but not quite as much time in 5. And I haven't touched 6 hardly at all. Part of the reason why I'm stepping away from it is because it was just the same game. Like, it was the same cars with the same mods, the same tracks. All they did was they made it look a little bit better year to year. They improved the physics year to year, which in the early games on the 360 it made a lot of sense. But with a lot of the stuff, especially on the 360, the stuff could have been addressed with a simple patch. It was primarily software that it could have been addressed. I mean, there may have been more stuff within the coding on the disk itself and how everything is made use of may have changed. For that, then there would obviously make sense to actually release a disk if how everything is formatted is different. But for the most part, like with what I saw, what I experienced, 2, 3, and 4 were largely the same game, just different resolutions, as 4 had a higher resolution and 3 was a little bit higher than 2. But that was it.
Right, there wasn't really much of a change to them, which to me didn't really warrant a full-fledged payout. I think even now, Forza Horizon 2 and 3 on the Xbox One, even then, I think the only difference between the two was just location. As far as cars were concerned, there were some like updates to certain cars, but they were minor. And then there were some exclusions, which kind of sucked. But that's on the car companies themselves, not necessarily the game developers and Microsoft. That really shouldn't be warranted as a full-fledged. I mean, I still played it just because Forza Horizon 1 was my jam. It's probably the only racing game I truly enjoyed, and didn't really do much in Forza 2, but when I saw Forza 3, I had to get my hands on it, and I did. Thank you.
Yeah, Forza for me, I mean, I'm a tuner. I modify my own car. I do work on my own car. So for me, Forza is something that I invested a lot of time in over the last several years. I played GT early on, but when I made the switch to the 360 not too long after release, I've been all Xbox since then, and I really haven't had much interest in going back to PlayStation. But yeah, overall, Forza is a fantastic game. It's just, I think it's gotten a little bit long in the tooth, and I think kind of stuck with really knowing where it is that they can go from there. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of run its course, and they're just kind of stuck with a lack of creative direction that they can go from here.
Yeah, I mean, Phil, you needed to jump in on this Forza Horizon gameplay here. I'm not sure. You do racers, right?
I do. I'm a big Gran Turismo fan. I've been playing Forza for quite some time.
Yeah, so I mean, like like when it comes to the versions that come out, that there technically should be, at least the way I see it, they should technically be like just updates. They shouldn't be like full-fledged games that require a full $60 shell out. And even if that is the case, they shouldn't be at full price. I mean, you look at like games like hell, even Killer Instinct itself, which is free to play, or you can buy the the full package deals. Whenever they did an update, a patch update, it was rolled out to everything, regardless of what version you currently paid for. You got the update, just because that's just how they want to do their whole dynamic. It's similar to how like League of Legends works, where you get the full updates of whatever they do to the full game itself, and then if characters that you want, you can either buy the whole, like a whole setup for it, or you can just purchase the characters individually. But when it comes to like the racers and stuff like that, those are the type that I feel it can be just simple like patches. What do you think, Phil?
For car racing, yeah, the licensing for the cars and stuff should be something that's automatic and free as an update. But you're looking at a shift from Forza Motorsports to Forza Horizon. I think the big reason why they did Forza Horizon was to introduce a PvP element that's not just standard racing. Because if you look at Forza Motorsports, you can play with other people online, but you have to wait for the track to load up, and then you invite people to the track, and then you race. But with Forza Horizon, then now it's open world racing. You could go to an event or not, and it's all on your map. And for Forza, I think that's what they have been experimenting with since Horizon 1, that was on the Xbox 360. It's just a shift in racing. It's to accommodate Fast and Furious and the open world racing that people have fallen in love with, whereas track racing has never been really that big of a deal. Because look at the old Formula One games. Yeah. It's basically just track racing, and people didn't really dig it, so it didn't sell. But with competing with other people online, the PvP aspect with racing is just, because not everyone's going to go out there and have fun shooting people. They much rather, race a car, see who's the best, and take your S13 and go beat up a Volkswagen Golf, an R32 for that matter. I mean, get spanked by an S13. That's hurtful. That's hurt. Well, not only because it would feel really bad if you got beat by an S13, and I would be like, my car beats the shit out of that. Why did I lose? And then you go back and you take a look at the specifications of your car. You tweak it out. Maybe I lost in the corner because you're looking at a 4-wheel drive against a 2-wheel drive. This guy's a drifter. I'm a gripper. So it's just your racing technique. And of course, that's what people want to do in a game. So you're not spending all that money on your car and you're smashing it up against the wall like, oh, fuck, I just broke my fender. But in the video game, it's like, oh, whatever. And I think that's what they're trying to, capitalize on is another community that, to get the money from. But, the biggest thing that I think is really hurting content and gaming, season passes.
Is it really hurting?
Because, once you get a season pass, you forked over the money for future content, and you don't know if that content's any good. Like The Division. The Division pisses me off, by the way. It really pisses me off. I mean, this fucking game was in development for like 5, 6, 7 years, right? And it comes out as trash. Mm-hmm. I mean, Andy and I have been talking about this game for quite
Yeah,
some
you guys got
quite some time.
You guys got me hyped up for this one. Like,
I sold the shit out of that game to you, Matt.
We were waiting to play this game, and then we played. It's like, well, this is shit. You know, you're falling through holes. You're stuck in gaps. You can't open a door. I mean,
yeah, there was some stuff within the division where I think, you know, a little bit more fine tuning I think would have been helpful. But I pre-ordered that game well over a year in advance. I was, I think, the second person to pre-order the game at my local GameStop, and I was tracking that game from the E3 announcement many years ago. When they showed the teaser, I was fully bought in. Everything that they were trying to do, I was all about it. So I tracked that game. That was one of the first games that I really tracked from the first announcement to release, post-release. Right. That for me, because I'm a very casual gamer compared to either of you two. I am not the hardcore gamer either of you are. But this was one game where I'm like, okay, I'm all about this fucking game. I was all in on it. And when it came out, when it came out, the gameplay was very enjoyable. I really enjoyed the game. But the problem was it was just way too fast. It was like 5 or 6 hours of gameplay, and that was it.
Right.
Like
that's what I heard a lot of. That it was the content, or at least the single player aspect of it, or at least the story, wasn't necessarily as long as most players anticipated for, since it was an post-apocalyptic open world type of scenario where you can just go into places and do your business. It was very limited to places you can go, and after you completed most of like the overworld stuff, you're pretty much just stuck in like that PvP underground style, and that gets boring really quick.
Well, so the PvP wasn't so much underground. What it was a concentrated area in the middle of Manhattan Island. And it was fine. I mean, they had the story area that surrounded it, but their idea of new content was releasing like basically the equivalent of a raid in WoW, one of those like a month. And not only that, but it was no different than a normal mission, except it was just tougher guys. They were better equipped. They did more damage. They had more armor. I mean, in a lot of ways, it reminded me of Diablo, which I played a little bit from a roommate of one of my old roommates and another friend of mine. And I'm like, well, wait, so the concept of the game is you play through it 3 times and everything just gets harder? What the fuck am I going to do with that shit? That shit is stupid. It's a waste of my time.
Diablo itself, I think it was the first of its kind to have that type of element of, you know, dungeon raiding. So they really didn't have. There was story to it and everything like that, but it wasn't like as in depth until like what was it, the second one, and even in the third, where they actually had more story, where you're actually there was purpose, and then there was reasoning and all this other stuff here. Then with the expansion that they've added to it, but yeah, I see where you're coming from on that. And there's like you get this game, you're supposed to have a lot of content that they promised out there, that they were throwing out there, that they're hyping, and then you plug it in, you play it, you find out you just completed it, and it's only lunchtime.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I completed it playing casually. I'm only maybe 3-4 hours a night, because I'd get off from work, come home, play until 11 or 12, and then go to bed and then go to work. But I completed it in like 3 days.
Yeah. So like, it's a letdown. That's what it was. Can't speak personally on it because I never actually bought it.
You can borrow mine anytime.
No, I'm good.
But the thing is, here is, you know, you were hyped up for that game. It's the same thing that's wrong with the pre-order system. Is you get hyped up and you put the money down, but you get disappointed with the game, and it doesn't really feel like it's worth it. Like our brutally honest game reviews, which I need to re-edit anyway. It's all about retaining value for your games, because like Andy said, we're normal guys. You know, we go to work, put our time in, we come back, we just want to shoot some stuff and, you know, go to bed. And if you have maybe 3 hours, you know, I'm pretty sure, because Andy's a busy dude, 3 hours is a lot, you know, and you want to maintain enough rest to be ready for work the next day, so you don't get that much time. And if you could beat the game in like 2 or 3 sittings,
less than a week, really.
Yeah, that's not worth your $60, let alone the $100 you dropped on the season pass on the gold edition. You know,
right?
That's what it's
And then
like.
you're
I look
promised.
at it this way though. When it comes to like that in particular, at least when it comes to the Gears series, the story was told throughout 3 games up until the 4th one that came out, in which it follows his son, Marcus Phoenix's kid. I didn't really think there'd be much left to really go on. So I wasn't one to really expect much from a storyline. It was mainly something that they pushed out when it came to the teasers, the gameplays that they debuted prior to release. They were all revolving around multiplayer. The horde modes, the different modes of team battles and whatnot. That's what it seemed like they were really focusing on. That they were really pushing. The story-wise, they didn't really say much for it. They didn't really go much on that, and I believe even every other review that I've seen really said that same thing, that the storyline was a bit short, but it made up for it in the multiplayer aspect, which is good for those who like that competitive scene, but for those like you, Andy Man, who just want to have a good story, it didn't held up its end of the bargain.
let me tell you about Gears of War really quick. I got something new that I'm going to say about Gears of War 4 because I just beat it the other day, and when the game came out, we spent about 3 or 4 hours after launch to play the game, and then we didn't touch it for a week because we wanted the $100 value to come back. So we were like, we're not going to play it for a week. And then I jumped on a couple times to get some horde footage with some buddies. But it is very, very short. You could beat this game in a day. Like, that's literally disappointing. One day. And the store will be gone. Like, granted, there's a lot of build-up here. If this was a book, it's the first. Well, it's not really the first, but it's the 4th book in a series. So they close the door on some stuff, but they open on a new stuff. But you don't get your value from this game at all. And there's going to be more in the re-edit of my video, having beat the game and played through some more horde. Yeah, I'll save it for the video, but it's gonna be some good stuff.
Yeah, y'all tune into that one when it drops. When the re-edits drop on that one on our Brutally Honest review segments on our channel. Most of what we talked about tonight was a lot of the iterations, a lot of stuff that should be and shouldn't be done. You're looking at I think the only ones who have ever done it right were the MMO RPGs, just because that's been their jam since the beginning. They knew what they knew what they figured it out. The console side, they're getting there. They're catching up slowly, but it's still an uphill battle. You're looking at stuff like Gears, Call of Duties, any fighter that drops. There was times over you question, like, was this really worth the $60 I just dropped? Or for those who like get like the special editions, or like the ultimate bundles, if you will, they want to get their money's worth. Phil, I know you got the ultimate edition for Gears, and you're ready to feel that it's not.
No, I mean, I spent $100 on it. Let me show you. This is what $100 gets you. This right here, and then look, you get this nice sealed book case, right? But that's it.
You pay $100 for some tin.
Yeah, I mean, you do get. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is what you're looking for. And this is why I say that it's what everyone is fucking up on when it comes to video game sales. And this right here, the season pass, is now you're forking over money for content you don't even know what they're going to give you. It's like a surprise bag, and you're spending half the price of the game on stuff you don't even know what it is. I mean, hardcore fans like me, you guys are out there. I'm going to drop the bomb right now. Don't buy Ultimate Editions unless it comes with a cool toy. Like right now, just don't. Yep. Just don't.
They're called statues, Phil. They're statues. And action figures, not toys.
Well, yeah, but if you get a gun, like the old collector's edition for Gears 3, there was a limited edition. There was a limited edition set that you could buy. It was like it was $250. But it came with a replica scale 1-to-1 gold Lancer.
Yeah,
that's fucking cool. That's $250. Yeah, that's $250. Take my money, right?
So yeah, I saw one at GameStop when that dropped. Someone brought that in. They were selling it at full value just for the Lancer alone. So yeah, that thing was impressive.
That makes it worth it. The old Call of Duty came with the night vision goggles, $150.
I really wish I jumped on that at the time because those were legit. I heard those things were worth like $100 on their own.
But it made it worth it to spend the extra money.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're spending $100, $150 on what future content. We don't even know what it is. Yeah. The companies just want your money, man, and we got to stop. We got to stop doing this. Just like the pre-order. I mean, I do the pre-orders because I want the game ahead of time so I can do content and, because, I'm a public figure, I'm here full-figured in my greatness to try to help you guys out so that way you guys know not to buy this shit-ass motherfucking game.
Full-figured, he said. Full-figured.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not exactly a surprise. I mean, how many times have we thrown that term around? Whatever. Like that's not new. Just because you're little stick figure dude over
there. We're the future, man. Okay?
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I'm not doubting that.
Right here.
We are heading into winter. It is going to get cold, ladies. If still fat kid is going to keep you warm.
Wow.
Winter is coming.
I'm at a loss of words for you guys.
To continue on with what Phil was saying with like the Ultimate Editions and the limited edition pre-orders and all of that. Every once in a while, there's ones where I'll go and I'll spend the extra money. Like I went and I bought the extra stuff on Forza because it came with all of the car packs. And for me, some of the cars, like in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that. But I mean, it was an extra $40, so it's not like the end of the world. And I don't buy nearly as many games as I used to. I'm getting maybe somewhere between 8 and 10, maybe 12 games a year, maybe one a month. So spending an extra $40 to make sure that I get a little bit extra enjoyment while I'm playing it, so I get specific cars that I wanted to get. For me, that's worth it. But again, it's something that like Phil was saying, it's subjective. With Call of Duty getting the extra game, the maps that they release, you may not know in advance what they're going to be releasing, but it's a way to know that when that content comes out, you're going to get it. And if you go through and you pick and choose, and let's say you wind up getting all of them, you'll spend more than what that extra $40 is going to wind up costing you. So in the end, it's going to wind up saving you money. If you look at it from the aspect of, I'm going to want to play all of these new maps, then it's totally worth it. But if you're not 100% committed to playing, say, 3 months after release, then don't spend the money. I think it's really that simple when it comes down to those Ultimate Editions. Or if there's a cool toy in the like so far, Phil said.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, I think the only time I ever wanted to get, like, a Ultimate Edition of anything was the Titanfall. When they released it was like a 10-inch, like, Atlas, which was basically the mech that you pilot, that lit up the whole bit there.
Yeah, that was a really cool toy.
Yeah. It was
with the Master Chief helmet.
Yeah, even that too. Like, they don't really do that much anymore like that. Mainly now because it's like the season pass. It seems like it's easier to package. It doesn't cost them too much out of their budget to drop a code down into a little sheet of paper. I think if more stuff like that would be the incentive as opposed to the future stuff that you don't really know if it's going to happen or not, or it's not even sure how it's actually going to function in game once you get it. I think like that type of stuff can be held back, or at least not be part of that $100 bundle. Just put it in with the with the $60 that the game you're selling comes through, because everyone knows that the production of the game takes years, depending on what they're doing. The creation of the actual physical copies of themselves, not so much.
Weeks to months.
Yeah. If they follow that model, or at least nowadays, like I said, we had the tech for the console, the PC world, to drop patches and updates to games themselves. We don't really need to spend that full-fledged 60 bones for content that should only cost about $20. That's just how I see it.
So one of our friends, Brent, me and him were talking about a year ago, and one of the things that he brought up, he's like, when it comes to the extra content, I feel like I'm being nickel and dime. And if it costs $100 to make the game and all of the content, then honestly, charge me $100 up front and don't charge me for the extra shit on the back end. I mean, if that's really what your production cost is to keep you guys even, charge me $100 at least, because then at least I feel like I'm getting everything that's associated with the game, and I don't have to get nickel and dime later on to go to all of this extra shit.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest complaint amongst the gaming community as a whole, is these games that come out that aren't even complete, or like they're dropping them real quick. I mean, this, like, for example, like Street Fighter V, when they dropped that one out, it wasn't complete. There was no story mode, there was no lobbies, there was none of this stuff. It was like online play, basic like character storyline, and yet prior to the release, they were hyping the story mode, that this is going to be completely different. There's going to be, back history between the characters and whatnot, and we didn't get that till almost 8 months later.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I could be exaggerating that time frame, but it seems like it was a long ass time before we actually got the stuff that was promised. And then that even goes along with a lot of the other games that get dropped, that are just straight garbage, that they drop because like they need to get something out, type of thing. And that's not the best way to go about it. If it's going to take it, if you need to delay something to make it good, do it.
Yeah, like King of Fighters, when King of Fighters came out, that was a complete game. It had the story mode, the arcade mode, it had everything in the game, and it was all up there up front for $60.
Right.
But when Street Fighter came out, it's $60, and it wasn't even complete. You couldn't have two people at home playing the game. There wasn't a versus mode or an arcade mode. It was all online. So there was a lot of stuff that Capcom missed. We're not even talking about the rootkit for the PC version, so we don't need to talk about that. But when you release a game, release it and have it complete. I mean, if you have extra content that's going to come out, sure. If you're going to offer a season pass to someone who wants to take advantage of having that content earlier, give it to them half price. If you're going to sell those extra content at $20 a packet, why not give it to the guys up front for like $10? You spend $30 more, and you get really good quality content when it comes out. Not a broken ass raid that no one can do on any of the difficulties because it's just boring as shit, and all these fuckers have like armor up the wazoo, and you can't do anything with their high-end fucking gun. I mean, that's trash. That's garbage. You don't pay for that. Would you pay for a stinky ass fish when it comes out of the restaurant fresh?
No, because if it's stinky, it ain't fresh.
Exactly. It's trash. You don't pay top dollar for trash. You just don't.
Yeah, well, I guess. Well, game developers don't see it that way. They're like, you know what? This is what the people want, or this is what we think that what the people want. This is what we're gonna give them, and then we'll patch it as we go along.
People are dumb.
In theory, it makes sense, but when in actual practice, they do it horribly wrong. If they would look at the way, like I said, I keep always going back this way, but the way they look at like the MMORPG layout, on how they do their patches, their updates and stuff. If they follow that model, I don't think anyone would ever have a complaint.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple.
You look at Overwatch, which has gotten a lot of positive reviews very early on. It's only been out a couple of months. I got pissed off at it with some stupid shit that they did, some changes that they made, but overall, I'm pretty happy with the game for the most part. But the patch model and the releases that they're following is very much in line with what you see with World of Warcraft and with other MOBAs, which is when it's time to release something, they generally will release it on Tuesday, which is in line with what World of Warcraft has been doing for 12 years, for 13 years, whatever it's been. It releases on Tuesday, and they don't charge you for it. They'll give you a heads up, like, okay, and here's our patch notes, and here's what's changing. But they're also listening to what the community is saying. Like, they're taking feedback, and they're listening to what the people have to say, and then they're making changes based off of that information, which a lot of game makers right now, I don't think they listen. And to be very specific, I really don't think that EA is listening to what it is that their customers are saying. And I think that Battlefield's maker, I don't think they're doing the same thing, which I believe is another subdivision of EA. I don't think that they listen. They come up with an idea of what it is that they want to make, and then they make it, and they're like, see, look what we did, look what I can do. And then nobody really gives a shit.
Yeah, and that's what, going back to the old school console here, the Sega Dreamcast, that's what happened with them, that they were just making their own, they were just making whatever they wanted out of it. They made a small handful of good things, and then the rest was just trash toward the point where the console wasn't worth, paying for just to get for like 3 or 4 games. It defeated its purpose. This goes along the same lines with a lot of the game console that comes up, but that's just the way I see it. And the companies can take a look at how the MMO world does it. I'm pretty sure everyone else would be in a better place when it comes to what's dropped. But for that, that's just how I see it. Phil?
I think they really need to look at, like you said, a different model and how to handle their updates. But we don't need certain games yearly. Some things can be handled with the patch. Some things do warrant the remake of the game, but don't rush it so it comes out in a year. Do things right and take your time with it. We're simple gamers, We just go shoot shit.
Yep.
Steal cars.
Well, I think we've gotten a lot of our opinion. Let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that for everyone here. That this is solely based on our opinions on the model of it that companies are using when it comes to releasing games and content. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's wrong either. But
I don't think we need to worry about a disclaimer because right now there is exactly nobody that is sponsoring us or anything like that. So
yes.
Anyway,
sad. It's sad. But that right there, I think will conclude our podcast for this week. Tuning in next week, we'll be doing a live podcast again. We're going to have these like every week, different subjects. We'll let everybody know. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll be able to see what's coming up when it comes to the podcast. You can also give us suggestions on our Twitter feed. We check it daily. You can also find out when we drop other content on our channel, which include Throwback Thursdays, where I myself play some of the old school games from the NES to Sega Genesis era. You can also check out Brutally Honest Game Reviews by Phil Stop. He'll be doing a whole lot more to come. We just dropped Gears of War 4. We're probably going to do a little more on Constat there. You can also check out our live streams where we actually play games on our Twitch channel. That'll be revolving around all of us here because you'll see one of us is going to be playing something. Whether it's a racer, a fighter, a platformer, we'll be there. We're gonna be on that, and that's usually gonna be like every Saturday. You'll see us drop a live stream. So you can find out all that stuff on our Twitch, not Twitch, but our Twitter
page
when we drop those. Yeah.
Getting yourself
And
confused.
I know, right? And also check out our Throwback Thursdays, where we, not Throwback Thursdays, our Kaizo Mario series. That's fun.
That's fun
I
for
say
us,
that.
not so fun for you.
Where basically I play a ROM hack of Super Mario World, one of the first ever hard as balls platformer I've ever come across.
It's the basis of Mario Maker.
Yeah. 4 episodes deep, and we're on our way to our 5th one. Throwback Thursdays this month is actually a Halloween theme, so it's a lot of them going to be rolling around some of the horror games that came out for those consoles, so check those out. And also be sure to check out the weekend before Halloween, where we'll be doing a live stream of Slender 2 The Arrival on Xbox One. It's going to scare the shit out of me. I just know it.
It's going to be glorious.
Yes. Until then, you guys, we'll see you guys in the next podcast. Any final words for you guys? Just a piece.
Yeah, no, nothing really much for me. I am planning on doing a brutally honest game review for Forza Horizon 3, and I'm also contemplating one for Call of Duty and possibly Battlefield as well. So if you guys want to see that, let me know.
And Phil?
We'll have a BHGR for Mafia 3 very shortly. I am playing through it now, and I have a lot of good stuff for you guys. Battlefield is on the list as well. And we're going to do a comparison video between Tomb Raider on Xbox One and Tomb Raider on PS4. Should be some good stuff.
Ooh, a comparison video.
That bitch. That bitch is hot.
Awesome.
And I'm going to throw my hat in the ring when it comes to our Brutally Honest game reviews with Titanfall 2, which drops at the end of the month. So be on the lookout for all of this and more. And we'll see you guys in the next podcast.
Peace.
Bye. Peace.